Hello, everyone. Welcome to the main line. My name's Ayana. I'm a supervisor here at Marion, Maine, and tonight's special guest is Nicole Buffong. She is the founder of Cannabis Connection World and the current Western Regional Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. So let's bring her up on stage.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Ayana. It's so nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you too, and I'm so excited to talk to you tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming. So let's start. Tell us all about you.
Well, I usually start my 30 my elevator pitch with I'm a cannabis patient, and that has turned into an advocate. And my passion is re-educating my community about the benefits of plant medicine. Cannabis is one of the many plants that I use, but definitely all plants are helping me heal my body, and it's a blessing that I get to tell my journey. And so, yeah, that's who I am, Nicole Buffong. I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, and I love this plant, and I love my community. And so that's what drives me.
Yeah, that is so great. I love that. Okay, so then how did you get started in the industry besides being a patient and then becoming an advocate? Tell me about that.
Okay, yeah. So it started with becoming a patient. So I was diagnosed with HIV in 2017, and that was a wake up call for me. The title of the book down the line is going to be How HIV Saved My Life. Because when I got the diagnosis, most people would be really scared, but it was a wake up call, and I knew that I had a bigger purpose. Because when I got diagnosed, all of my numbers were right there, tittering on AIDS, full blown AIDS. My kidneys almost shut down. So I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease because the virus was attacking my kidneys. And so, knowing all of this, when I got diagnosed, I knew that I knew who Dr. Sebi was. I knew who Dr. Africa was, Queen Afua. I knew the teachings. I understood the concept that no disease can live in an alkaline body. And so I knew, with that knowledge and information, I knew that there was going to be a way for me to heal. And so it wasn't as scary for me. It was really over that first year. It took me a while before I went public with my story. I just made a video, put it on Facebook for everybody to find out. So only my immediate circle knew that first year. But I knew it came to me in a dream. God told me, like, there's things I need you to do. And since then I have, had ancestral readings and been able to really tune in to how to listen to my ancestors and understand what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be helping others heal themselves. And so that really is why I got into the cannabis industry. I started doing my research. When I was a teenager, I was smoking weed because it was the thing to do and I liked it. But once I got the knowledge of the endogenous cannabinoid system, and I understood how the plant works with our bodies and medicinally, it really just took it to a new level. And then I felt like I was in college again, and I was studying this plant and studying all the research. And then I came across Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and I reached out to my personal network and said, "Who knows this lady? I got to meet this lady." and I, at the time, had just started my own company. I decided that I wanted to be a consultant with all the information that I was learning. I knew that I wanted to be able to teach others. And so I started a podcast in January of 2018. And that was just for me, as I was learning things, I wanted to record it and document it. And then I also wanted to share with others. And so I created a podcast. And that was about 12 episodes. And it was the beginning of me understanding how to create a curriculum and how to be able to give my service, give of myself to people in my community. And then meeting Roz was just the icing on the cake. The timing was perfect, and she really just took me under her wing. We didn't meet for the first 6 months, but she asked me to be director of Georgia. She asked me to start the chapter in Georgia, and we never met face to face. It was always over the phone. But she'll tell you it was because she could feel my passion and feel the energy that I had for wanting to teach and wanting to help people. And so, so that's kind of how I got started and why I got started. That patient story is a vital part of the story for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was, I got chills like halfway through. That was, and I can feel your energy and your passion also.
Thanks.
So
Thanks.
I'm so excited for like all that you will do in the future. That's amazing. The
Thank
podcast,
you.
having that goal to teach what you learn to the community, that's so beautiful.
For sure. Thanks.
Okay. So, what was your inspiration behind Cannabis Connection World?
Well, I think I shared a little bit.
Yeah.
By nature, I'm an educator. That's what I went to college for. Well, my first round of college, I decided I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. I just love teaching. And so Cannabis Connection World was really focused on me as a patient and other patients out there. Living in a state like Georgia, which is where I was at the time, it was no safe access to medicine. Like there was no, you were still buying cannabis from the neighborhood weed man. And you know, once I came out with my own story and explained to people what I was going through and how I was planning to heal, there was just a flood of people that were reaching out to me. So my father was a physician. He was an OBGYN and infertility specialist. And so I have this huge network of aunts and uncles and extended family that are medical professionals. And so when I came out to the public and let everyone know what I was dealing with, I had that network, that close-knit network that were reaching out to me and asking me for advice, asking me for access to information. And then so slowly it came together. Okay, as I was developing and planning to create this podcast, I recognized that I needed to have a company, I have a business, because I was becoming a brand. I was becoming a source of information that people could trust the information. And I recognized that at the time, this is only 2018, that there wasn't a lot of maybe education and resources that you can go to that could be trusted to get that knowledge. And then, of course, no one that looked like me, or not a lot of people that look like me. And being of color, being of West Indian descent, you know, a Black woman, I was able to get into churches. I was able to sit down at Sunday dinners with grandmas and extended families and really have these conversations. And I knew that, you know, my white counterparts weren't exactly able to do that. And so I recognized the value of looking like me and being able to have the knowledge and the wisdom that I have to be able to share it. I mean, I think information should be free, obviously, but people that are interested in getting into this industry, I recognize that I have something to offer, because if they're focused on starting a business, there's a lot of information out there that you have to sift through. It took me 2 years to do it before I could, you know, come up with something that was solid, that I was ready to present to people for them to be a resource for information. So that's that's really why I started it. I mean, I knew immediately I didn't have $1 million in the bank to try to touch the plant. And so if I was going to have a business in this industry, how was I going to have something that would be sustainable, and valuable to those that are trying to get in? So.
Okay. So that leads me to another question that I've been meaning to ask anyway. So what is the information needed to start a business in cannabis?
Oh man.
Right.
So it's a lot. It's extensive. It's not hard though. It's not rocket science, right? At this time in the industry, the cannabis is just getting started, right? We're not even fully federally legal here in the United States. So that means it's in its infancy stages. It's in prenatal stages of growth, right? We have hemp that just got legalized about 3 years ago in 2018, after almost 90 years of being in prohibition. And so that's new even to farmers, even though that was a main source, that was a commodity that we grew here in the United States 100 years ago. So there's so many layers to it. I always recommend, the first step that I recommend to people is really have an understanding of the endogenous cannabinoid system. If you're talking about getting into the industry, into the cannabis industry, you need to understand how and why the plant interacts with human bodies, but not only humans, any vertebrate animal, right? And understand why the number one selling product on the market are CBD treats for dogs. Like, you are understanding that, and if you want to get into this as a business, then that's one of the first things. And then, of course, the other part of the people that were coming to me wanting to get in the industry or learn about the industry were patients. And so the first step for anybody, it should always be start with the science. The endogenous cannabinoid system, I'm an affiliate, I'm proud to say, of the Knox doctors. They are the best when it comes to resources and information. They are doctors. They're endocannabinologists. And so I always recommend for people to reach out, look up Dr. Rachel Knox's TED Talk. It's a quick 15-minute video that really explains the endogenous cannabinoid system, and anybody can digest it, any age, any education level. So the Knox Docs, they have a new website out that they provide a curriculum that's been approved by the American Medical Association. So their curriculum that they created over the last few years has now been approved, the first curriculum to be approved for education inside of medical schools. So that's really exciting. And I love uplifting this amazing family. They're just beautiful souls that are passionate about the plant and understanding the science and the research that goes with it. So I'm proud to say that I'm an affiliate of pivotaledu.com. That's where you'll be able to find more information about the Knox Docs and their curriculum. They also provide CME credits. So first step is education on the endogenous cannabinoid system. Second step, get involved. Get involved with an advocacy group. There's a lot out there to choose from. Well, not a lot, but ones that are doing the work, right? You've got Normal, you've got Minorities for Medical Marijuana, you've got Minority Cannabis Business Association. These are organizations that have been working for decades, some of them, like Normal, on how to change the laws, because that is getting involved in legislation and making sure that in your state or on a local level, even because there's different municipalities that have different laws, that you're involved with that. Because if you want to start a business in this industry, you got to know what's happening legislatively. That's it. You got to understand on the ground what's happening, what's getting ready to happen, what's going to pass, what's not going to pass. Are you growing? If you want to start a hemp company or a CBD company, since that's the hottest thing going around these days, you got to know where you can produce your product. Can you ship that product over state lines? Like all of these, knowing the law is the next undertaking, so to speak, if you really want to get serious about getting into this industry. So those are my first two steps. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that's enough to get you started.
Yeah. The science and then the law.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that again.
What I think I would add to that. I'm sorry. Let me do my top three. The history. Because once you understand the science and you understand what the law is, what comes with that is the history. Understanding whatever country you're in, what is the history and the timeline when it comes to this plant? Yeah. We know what happened here in the United States, but if you're here, know what happened. Understand that history, because it's important to understanding why it's still not legal today.
Right. And that kind of sort of helps with planning where you're going and where you want to go, knowing
that's right. Where we started. That's right. Because if you don't understand the history, then you're going to allow these legislators to make laws that continue to block the progress of the plant. And so you got to know where it started, how it started, why, who our biggest opposition is, the pharmaceutical companies. Yes. They don't want it to be legal, and that's who stopped it. So understanding what their motives are, really helps you to navigate in this space for sure.
Wonderful. Okay, so I know that you have a vast network of global cannabis connections.
Yeah.
How did you begin to build
that? Well, so it's in my DNA. So my mother's from Trinidad and my father's from Dominica. And so I'm first generation American. And so both of my parents immigrated to the United States back in the 70s. And so what that did was it really connected me to my roots. When I got diagnosed, I knew who Dr. Sebi was. Yeah, I knew who Queen Afua was. But I also remember my grandmother keeping a bottle of rum in the back of the liquor cabinet with grass in it. That's all I could explain. Weeds is what it looked like, right? And so as I got older and understood, and my dad explained to me what it was, that was the tonic. Like, you got a cough, you gotta, they go out into the jungle literally and pick bush. And cannabis was one of those bush medicines that they would use, that they would put into this rum and make it into a tonic that would cure whatever. And so with that foundation and understanding from my ethnic background, my cultural background, being West Indian American and being so closely connected, because I'm first generation, I can, follow my family line back to the Caribbean. That had a lot to do with my connection to the region, as well as my passion for wanting to get back there and be a part of the legal cannabis industry as it's being built out. And so, but globally, that's where my global connection started. And then, of course, my fascination for and understanding land races. So land races, if you don't know or understand, are the genetic land races that are growing in the sun, in the sand, in the soil, in whatever region they're indigenous to. A lot of the cannabis flower that we're smoking, this hybrids and what you get in a dispensary made here in the United States, a lot of it is, made inside of a lab. It's genetically modified, so to speak, that they are creating all these different cultivars, but these cultivars' origins start with land races. And so I truly believe that the best land races that we still have not even touched yet or smoked yet or even know about yet, because they're all in these indigenous tropical places across the planet. And so when I think about who lives in these indigenous tropical places, it's people that look like us. It's people that look like me. And that goes all the way around the globe, because the closer you get to the equator, the darker the people get. And those are the prime environment for land races, for outdoor growing of this cannabis plant. It grows like 3, maybe if you're lucky, 4 harvests in a year, cycles in a year, because it just loves that type of weather. That humid, warm type of weather is what it loves. And so my passion for that, and understanding that my father was a Rasta. And so knowing that most of these tribal indigenous people were Rastafarians, and because they hold the plant so sacred to them, to their faith, to everything that they do, that they were the ones that risked their lives, their livelihood, their families' lives for the last 100 years, just to keep these land race genetics. For example, Jamaica. It was just as long as it's been illegal here in the United States, it's been illegal in Jamaica to have, use, grow, consume ganja. Okay, they just made it legal. They didn't. They decriminalized it, but that's a whole nother topic. But everybody knows, you go to Jamaica, you get the best ganja. So that lamb's breath, that genetic that's in Jamaica, there were Rasta tribes that had to keep that cannabis growing. Even when it became illegal, they lock you up for it. They burn your fields. They had to go up into the mountains in Jamaica and secretly hide and grow their cannabis. So if it wasn't for them risking their lives, risking their freedom to continue to grow the plant that they hold so sacred, we wouldn't have a lamb's breath today, because they would have all been wiped out if they had followed the law and not been rebels and stuck to their what they were passionate about when it comes to this plant. So those are the stories that I want to tell. Those are the stories that I want to share. Those are the ones that I know need to be told, because we need to hold them to the highest regard, because without them, we wouldn't have these genetics. And so that's kind of my hunger for wanting to become a pheno hunter. So a pheno hunter would be hunting land races all over the globe, and bringing those to labs to get tested, and preserving those genetics, making sure that the people that have kept them alive all these years are profit from what will come, the medicine that will be made, the lives that will be saved. We want to be able to build generational wealth from this knowledge and this information. So I'm just passionate about that, and that's how my global reach has just kind of grown in the last couple of years.
That's amazing. That is so great. And I definitely did not know that about, people in Jamaica having to do
think about it. But think about it. I mean, if you think about it, though, it's been illegal. So how, now that it's now legal again, how did we find these genetics? Where did they come from?
Right. They're keeping whole entire strains from going extinct, basically.
Exactly. All over. But I mean, the best sativas come out of, the Sudan and, these places in Africa that it's still illegal. And when you go hunting for these genetics, you've got to, pay people off, and you're sneaking through jungles and all of that. But
my next question, is that dangerous to be a pheno hunter?
It can be, especially if, you know, you're doing it in a country where it's still illegal, right? So if you're in a country where it's illegal to have these plants and you're paying people and trying to find people that are still growing them, then you're working within the black market, right? And yes, that could be dangerous, of course. Yeah. But, you know, but the time to do it is now. So as different countries in the Caribbean become legal, you know, now is the time for me to go to these countries as they're legal, and then, you know, let those Rastas know that it's okay to come out. It's okay to come down from the mountain. Bring your plants with you. Let's test them. Let's see what they can really do. And so as these different countries and countries in Africa, there are different countries that are coming online every year. And so now is the time to kind of start exploring, start connecting with some of these countries and getting into these jungles and finding these land races and seeing what diseases we're going to cure with them.
Yes. Oh, that's so exciting. That's definitely the exciting part too.
Yeah.
Wow, yay. Okay, so then let's lead that into talking about social equity. We hear about it all the time. It's like a buzzword in the cannabis community.
Is.
What is social equity and what does it mean for operators within the cannabis community?
I don't want to speak for everyone.
All right.
I can tell you what it means to me. It means that first, you social equity means that you release everyone from prison that has gotten locked up for cannabis. If somebody is in prison right now, sitting in prison on a cannabis possession or distribution charge, all of them need to be free, records expunged. Anyone that formerly sat in prison or got charged with possession, that's the first step for social equity, that you erase records and you let people out of prison. If it had anything to do with cannabis. And then the next step is looking at the numbers. I realized that every state, every community, every region is different. When I'm looking at writing social equity policy for a state like Arizona, then the first group of people that we know have been disenfranchised, the majority are going to be people of Latinx descent, are going to be people of indigenous descent. More than blacks, just because there's not a whole lot of black people in Arizona, you know. So those, when we're writing language and we're taking into consideration who's been affected and who needs to be at the front of the line in order to be a part of this legal industry, then we have to take in consideration the statistics, the math, who has been, you know. And so every place is different, because when I'm also working on language, social equity language for the country of Trinidad on behalf of all mansions of Rastafari. They're an NGO based in Trinidad and Tobago. And so the Attorney General there has made it his priority. He said it at the beginning of the year, the same time that they announced that they had to cancel Carnival. They announced that they were going to put a lot of effort into passing the cannabis control bill down there. And so as they form their language, and this Rastafarian group says, you know, how do we ask for social equity in our country? There's maybe 2% white people in this country. So we're not considering it. It would be based on your ethnic heritage. So in Trinidad, all Trinidadians consider themselves all Trini. If you speak with a Trini accent, if you're from Trinidad, don't matter what color, don't matter if you're slant eye or nothing, Indian, black, you're all Trini. But we have Afro Trinis, we have Chinese Trinis, we have Indian Trinis. And so when we look at the numbers in that country, the first group that's been affected the most are the Rastafarians. That's the first group. They're the ones that have been prosecuted the most, criminalized the most throughout history in the country when it comes to cannabis. And then, so they need to be at the forefront of social equity. They need to be benefiting the most from social equity. And then you have Afro Trinis that were the ones that were most criminalized, the ones that were arrested more than the Indian Trinis, more than the Chinese Trinis, even though we know everybody uses the plant. So those are the kind of things that we have to look at when you're considering social equity in a community or in a state or in a country, and who has been the most affected. And when you look at the numbers and the facts, that's why we say Black and brown, indigenous people of color, because they are the ones that have been affected the most. And that's just based on the numbers. And so that's what social equity means to me. It means building an industry that you have to give a leg up to the people that you have taken down for all these years to allow them to be a part. They're the ones that have the customers. They're the ones that have been selling the plant illegally, risking lives, freedoms, family, in order to serve their communities. Because even though cannabis has been illegal for 90 years, it hasn't slowed down the usage.
Right.
So So their efforts, the war on drugs, is failed. They have failed that war. They have lost that war, and they're doing a terrible job at trying to keep going back to the battlefield with it. A terrible job. So, so that's what social equity means to me. I mean, it means a fair and equal opportunity for people who, off their disenfranchisement, have been are now at the bottom and not even allowed to work in the industry, let alone own it. And so I think that we are in a special place right now where we have the opportunity to do that by writing it into legislation, making sure that somebody that is an advocate is sitting at the table, because if not, they won't. And so it's important, and that's why I do the work I do with them for MM.
Yeah. Tell us more. Keep going. Keep talking.
Well, Roz giving me the opportunity in 2018 to start the chapter in Georgia. That was my first introduction to being a lobbyist and an advocate. And so I learned so much. I was able to absorb so much about how that is done. And then moving to Nevada in 2019 and starting the chapter here. It's a different market than Atlanta. It's a different demographic makeup. It's a different energy. Of course, it's adult use here. It's medical use, legal. It's the mecca of where everybody travels to experience those kind of things. And so moving from Georgia to Nevada was a very much a shift change. But with that came the knowledge and the opportunity to learn more about how you get things done in a different kind of state, in a state that requires different emphasis on laws to help people get involved, right? Because we're already legal. We already handed out cultivation licenses. We've already handed out dispensary licenses. And now we're getting ready to hand out new licenses for the first time in 2 years. And so that's going to be social use lounges. And so that's different than anything that I would have lobbied for in Georgia. They're not lobbying for social use lounges yet in Georgia. So I really feel, to be honest, I feel like I'm in grad school. But being with M for MM the last 3 years has really given me the opportunity to learn so much and information that I couldn't pay for. There's no college degree that I can earn or college I can go to learn what I've learned about being a lobbyist and an advocate. Yeah. So, and especially for my community, which means so much to me. So being with M for MM has afforded me the opportunity to do that. And there's not enough thank yous I could give to Roz and the whole executive team, Eric and Roz, that have really mentored me and shaped me to be able to do this, to have an opportunity to make a difference in my communities and not just here in the United States, but being asked to work on legislation in Trinidad and Tobago is because of the work that I've done with M for MM. And so in January, Roz asked me to be the Western Regional Director, which means I now manage 8 states in this region, including Hawaii. And so that just has, the last 3 months since legislative sessions have started, I feel like I'm in grad school now because I'm reading constantly. I am reading and then having to have conversations about what our suggestions are. And the bill from Trinidad is 300 pages. The bill from Arizona is about 50 pages. The bill from Nevada is about 45 pages. So it really does. I'm studying and I'm researching and all of that really helps me to just to be able to be a better spokesperson for my community, but also really to be effective at making change because I get to speak to legislators. I get to speak to our opposition, whether that be the Nevada Dispensary Association or the police department, and just understanding what their concerns are, and then realizing how we can help, how we can find a middle ground that makes sense, and pass legislation that also helps to diversify ownership here in Nevada. So,
yay! And congratulations, that is so great. 8 states. Look at you go. That's so great. And into another question that I already have for you, because I've worked at 2 different dispensaries in Maryland. So you definitely have done East and West Coast. What do you feel like are some differences?
Interesting. There's a lot of differences. It's not just some. Well, the main difference obviously is access to safe medicine. That's the main difference. Yeah, Maryland has a legal medical. Is Maryland adult use? Did they go adult use yet?
We're medicinal
Just
and
medicinal, right?
mhm,
Yeah. I live in an adult use state. And the biggest difference is just access, for sure. Here, unfortunately, what happens in adult use states, when they go adult use, is the medical program gets left behind. Medical patients get left behind. Less and less people sign up as a medical patient because now it's adult use. They don't have to worry about that.
mhm,
There are some benefits from being a medical patient, like we pay less taxes, and they might have some free giveaways and things like that for a medical patient every now and then, different dispensaries.
right.
But really, the overall benefit seems to like dissipate once you go adult use, and so that's something that is unfortunate. And why we fight so hard as Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and me as a cannabis patient advocate, to make sure that cannabis patients aren't left behind. One of the things that states like California have done, and Nevada, is make it so that you can't have a medical card and your gun license. And we know that there are a lot of gun-toting folks that will not, give up, sacrifice their gun license, their carry license, in order just to smoke weed with a medical card, right? Everybody's smoking weed. So there's that. It's access to safe medicine is probably the biggest difference. And then just where they are when it comes to negotiating legislation.
Right.
A state like Georgia, they have a medical cannabis legislation in on their books, but they don't allow flower. They only allow an extract that has to have no more than 5% THC in it. And they have a limited amount of diseases or diagnoses that you have to be diagnosed with in order to get that medical card.
Oh,
And the
wow.
way that the legislation is written in Georgia is those doctors, that the handful of doctors that are certified to issue out the medical card, they tell them that they have to make cannabis the last option. So if you're a chronic pain patient and you go in to see a pain doctor, they're going to put you through about 3 months of treatments, medicine, surgery options, physical therapy before they say, okay, let's try cannabis. That's how the law is written. And so it's unfortunate that there's those barriers that prevent people from even trying cannabis, and prevent doctors from talking to their patients about it as an option. That's what's really heartbreaking. And so that's it. The disparities, the difference in access to safe medicine and access to information. That's probably the biggest.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Didn't know that about Georgia, definitely.
It's tough. That's why I had yeah, sad.
It is, because
Mhm.
I know Maryland's list of medical things is very long. So that's
Mhm.
and to touch on something else that you said, I have heard patients in Maryland say, "This will be the last time you see me. I'm giving my card up for a year so I can get a gun." And it's
Yeah,
just, well, what is
it's
your health?
unfortunate.
What's your health going to do for that year? That's what I'm.
Exactly. Well, I mean, they've given up their medical card because they have to, because they can't get a gun license. And so it doesn't mean that they're going to stop using, but they'll stop being able to benefit from being a medical patient, which means reduced prices, which means some of those specials that people have, and just resources and access to more things as a medical patient.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. Okay, so I love that you are on a mission to change the narrative when it comes to cannabis. That just speaks to my heart. What growth have you seen since you've started?
Wow. Okay. So witnessing history when industrial hemp was made legal again in this country in 2018, it was I can't explain the feeling. Just knowing that the bill got signed and understanding what that meant, for us being able to use hemp and CBD, and having access to that side of the plant. It was just exciting, and it was a preview to what was to come, because we know federal legalization is coming. And hopefully we get it passed with a bill that makes sense. And when it comes to politics, we know there's a lot of negotiating. That's one thing I have learned, is that there's a lot of negotiating, and You're not always going to get everything that you want, but you have to think about the bigger picture, and you have to think about what is going to help the community more. It's squashing the bill altogether, not legalizing it because they won't allow, former prosecuted people to be involved in the industry. We don't want to scratch the whole bill. We want to legalize the plant. So how do we do this and compromise and get it to a point where it's something we can swallow? So that's probably one of the things that I've learned that has changed the most, is just seeing how the industry is growing. Some places are really disappointing when it comes to making sure that diversity is first, making sure and understanding, just recognizing that, if you are actually selling weed in a state that's legal, if you're selling cannabis in a state that's legal, and there are people sitting in prison,
yes,
that sold weed just the year before,
mm-hmm.
same plant, same process, money, a cash only business, because that's how dispensaries are, because they can't put their money in the banks.
Right.
I mean, just knowing that and understanding and not being active in advocating for records expungement, for getting people out of prison. I would say, last summer, with what happened with George Floyd and the racial uprising in this country again, I think that it brought a lot of attention to the work that groups like MCBA and M4MM have been doing since 2015 and 16. And I'm grateful to see that there are more cannabis companies and brands that really are taking an active role in having some corporate social responsibility. And the conversation is just coming up more and more, and I'm grateful to see that. So over the last year, we're coming up on a year anniversary of George Floyd's death, and I would say that there has been a lot of more conversations, a lot more energy put towards making sure that diversity and inclusion are top of mind when it comes to the cannabis industry, and it's because we're building it right now. We can't go back into tech. We can't go back into Google and Facebook and all of these other industries that have evolved in the last 5 or 10 years and try to create diversity. They're all owned by white men. And so it's like trying to change the framework of something that's already built is much harder than changing it before it gets built, and making a difference now, so that future generations can benefit from what we're building now and today.
Yeah. Which is the importance behind social equity and getting minorities in the cannabis business. The cannabis
Now,
business, really, yep.
Yeah, that right now. I mean, right now, I like to say, before federal legalization happens, the cannabis industry is like a window. The window of opportunity is open, but it's slowly closing. And if you don't act now, if you don't get the resources that you need now, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be a consumer and not an owner.
Yeah.
And being an owner is the way to create generational wealth in this space. You can't be a buyer and a consumer and think that you're gonna. No, you have to be able to own it, and own some part of this industry. And there's so many opportunities to do that, and so many non-plant touching opportunities that are really what people need to be jumping on now. You don't have to worry about whether or not cannabis is legal in your state if you're selling T-shirts, or if you're selling bongs, or if you're selling some special lighter with some kind of lighting on it or graphics on it. Like you don't need a license to do. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's legal in your state. Right. People can buy your product from anywhere in the world, if you're not selling something that is the plant. So there's options out there, and I think that that's important for all of us to recognize. But jumping on this train right now is the time to do it. Because when Walmart is selling weed in about 5-10 years, it's going to be too late.
It's funny because it's true, and you're absolutely right. Like at that point, it's over. We can't do much.
You are just a consumer. If you think you're going to try and get into the cannabis industry, then
yeah,
Marlboro is already selling hemp cigarettes. They already have hemp farms. They already getting ready. They've been getting ready. So Coca-Cola, they're going to have CBD water, all of that.
Wow. And then Coca-Cola does it. Pepsi's going to do it. And
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Wow. And if you're thinking about creating a CBD water, if that's what your thing is, and if that's what you're selling right now, how are you going to compete with them?
Right.
Your CBD water got to be something different in order to compete with Coca-Cola selling CBD water. Because they got billboard money, they got commercial money, they got influencer money, celebrity money. So how are you going to compete with that? So
So the best is to do
I
it
want
first.
to, that's right. I want to give a plug real quick to one of my clients. It's a Black-owned, female-owned company. It's called Twist to Axis, AXIS, like the Earth's axis.
Ooh.
And if you go to their website, twisttoaxis.com, their CBD drink. But the special thing about it is they apply technology to this CBD drink. So the CBD is in a cap. It's encapsulated in the cap of the drink. That so when you twist it after you purchase it and you twist it to open it, then the CBD is released into the water.
Wow.
So the CBD is kept preserved in this pressurized cap until you're ready to consume. And for those of you who don't know, when CBD or any cannabinoid is put into a liquid and it sits on a shelf in a clear plastic bottle, then it deteriorates. And so if it says there's 100 milligrams of CBD in that water when you buy it, there might be 10, maybe, if that, when you actually consume it, because it's been deteriorating sitting in this clear plastic bottle since it got bottled.
Yeah.
And so so Twist to Access, I just wanted to give them a shout out. It's look at the website, look at their product, because it's a clever way to marry technology and the new industry of cannabis into a product that therefore is better preserved and better for the consumer. So
Yay!
Yeah.
Right down there at the bottom for everyone.
Yeah, just to
I'll be
access.
checking that out. That's so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what are some options for our viewers to get involved in cannabis?
Whew, some options. I would say I already mentioned the advocacy groups. That's definitely top of the mind. Get involved that way. I would also say just find out what's happening in your state. I mean, the advocacy groups can help you do that. But learn about what's happening so that you can be effective or you can be influential. You're a taxpayer, and if there are any cannabis legislation laws on the book, you need to kind of be doing your research and looking those up. And another thing I like to tell people is figure out your why. Because, Twist to Access, she also comes with a story. She created this drink because her mom was dying of stage 4 breast cancer. And even though her mom lost that battle, she created this drink for other people that couldn't smoke cannabis, that couldn't eat it in a sugary edible. And so she created a naturally sweetened, naturally flavored drink that had the concentrate in it that her mom could consume while she was dealing with chemo and dealing with trying to heal her body. And so find your why, because that's going to go a long way. My personal story, I know, touches so many people, and that's why I'm so open about it. And I tell my story because cannabis saved my life. I mean, this plant medicine saved my life. In so many ways. It gave me a job. It is my medicine. It heals me. And so finding your why, whatever that is, that usually goes a long way as well. And then getting comfortable with telling that story.
Wow, I love that. That's great stuff. That's wonderful advice. Okay, so how can people get in contact with you?
Okay. So can be reached at Cannabis Connection World. That's my website, cannabisconnectionworld.com. I'm also Cannabis Connection World on Instagram. And I work with M4MM, so you can always find me through their website, m4mmunited.org. And I also work with an organization here in Nevada called the Chamber of Cannabis. And we are a nonprofit as well. I am director of Minority Voices for the Chamber of Cannabis here in Las Vegas. And it's great and exciting with the work that we're doing here. We actually just got our first bill draft of the social use lounge bill that we helped, M4MM helped to write language for when it comes to social equity. So you could find me working at the Chamber of Cannabis, and you could find me working at Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And you can find me working at Cannabis Connection World. I'm a busy lady.
That's so great, though. I love that. Yeah. Okay, so Nicole, what's next? Like, what are you doing next?
So the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago has a clause that says it's their birthright citizenship clause. And if you can prove that your parent or grandparent was born in the country, then you can become a citizen automatically. So my sister and I have submitted our application for citizenship in the country. And so that's the next step, hoping that we can get that done and processed by the end of the year, because they're going to be coming out with their cannabis control bill by the end of the year. And that means I'm going to be ready as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago to purchase my land and start a business and get down there, get back home is what I like to call it. So yeah, so that's the next step for me, as well as just the work that I'm doing here. I mean, Western Regional Director, I'm going to have a home here in Las Vegas. And so this will be my US home base. And then be, traveling back and forth to establish and build out the industry that I really want to see down there. But also making sure that I'm doing all the work that's necessary here. And the work that I'm doing here is really the training that I need to then go out and spread my knowledge and what I've learned to other parts of the world. And so yeah, so those are the next steps for me. Still focusing on work, but definitely getting back home. Getting back home to the island is where I know I can really heal, and then I can begin my work as a pheno hunter, looking for that special land race.
It's so exciting. I'm so excited for you and your sister. Best of luck with all of that.
Thank you.
Okay, so next question. What are your plans for 420?
So Emperor Roz decided at the beginning of the year, with everything that we've been doing and going on, that we were going to make 420 this year a week of service. And so we're kicking off that week of service with a experiment clinic in Phoenix, Arizona. We just started the chapter in Arizona. Our awesome chapter leader there, chapter president, is Bridget Hart. She is the first woman that is not a minority woman. She's the first non-woman of color to be a state director with the organization. And Roz selected her because she's so passionate. She's married to a Black man, and she has a Black daughter. And so she understands that her privilege, because of the color of her skin, means that she even more has to step up and be a voice for equity in Arizona. So we're excited to be doing our first expungement clinic in Phoenix, because when they passed their adult use license or law, they also in that law, they also had an amendment that would allow for expungements. So we're going to be working in Phoenix on the 17th, kicking it off there with Raj. She'll be in town for that. And then we have several events that we've got planned throughout the day, or throughout that week, from the 17th to the 25th. I'll be featured on the global discussion panel for Hope's 420 experience. So I'm looking forward to being there again. We did it last year, and that was great for the inaugural. So I'm excited to come back this year with my co-host Ivana, and we'll be hosting a global discussion about cannabis on that platform. Yeah,
that's great too. Oh, okay, well, I guess we are going to move now to questions and answers from the community. Well, you'll give the answers, but they'll give the questions.
Okay, sure.
So let's see, what do we have here? Okay, so far we don't have any questions.
Oh, okay.
I just want to go back and just chat about some of the things that you said. So I recently started teaching people in the community that like it's harder to grow sativa plants in the wintertime in Maryland. Which
yeah, I bet.
Up so perfectly with what you said about you get the best sativas from like the Middle East close to the equator.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. That makes so much sense.
For sure. I mean, growing in a state like Maryland, you would have to grow indoors in order to get the right plant with the right genetics that you want, right? With the right outcome. And so that means it's a very controlled environment. And if you just, mess up the temperature or the humidity for a day or a couple of hours, you can ruin a whole crop, right? It's very challenging growing indoors. And I'm not an expert at growing just yet. But I definitely have my network of experts that I kind of keep around me so I can learn as much as I can. But for now, I'm relying on products that are sold in the dispensary. And one of the things that I really like about living in Nevada is that they have part of their law mandate is that they have the top 10 terpenes printed on each label.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've really been able to get more into since I moved here is understanding how terpenes have medicinal value, and how much they affect your consumption when you consume cannabis. And so now that's a whole new world for me. Just underneath, California doesn't even demand terpenes on their packages. So Californians aren't talking about terpenes like we here in Nevada are.
Right.
And how the cannabis community is now that we know about it and we understand a little bit more. And so that's one of the things that I'm really diving into, because these different land races that I'll find, when I start digging and hunting, that's going to be very important, is what their terpene profile is. Because when you take lamb's breath and you try to grow it in Canada in a greenhouse, it's not going to be the same lamb's breath that's growing in the sand, in the soil, in the sun, in the wind, in the rain, in Jamaica. It's not. It's impossible. So it's going to be a different lamb's breath. It's not going to taste the same. It's not going to give the same effect. And so understanding that has been, is really exciting. Just researching terpenes and getting to know better which different terpene profiles help with what ailments.
Okay. So question, what's your favorite terpene?
Oh, terpinolene. It's an uplifter. I really like it. I am a fan of myrcene, but it has to be mixed with the right things, because I'm not an indica person. I'm a sativa girl.
Okay.
And so my myrcene has to be mixed with the right amount of carophyllene or limonene to have that effect, that uplifting effect that I like. And doesn't necessarily make me want to be in the couch. So, so I like the uplifting terps, and I just love the flavor of the myrcene and the limonene. That those flavors that flavor profile is so good to me. So that when you come to Nevada, when you come to Las Vegas, there is a cultivator out here called Green Life Productions, and they make their own compost. So they're organically soiled, and they grow their cannabis in organic soil. And so they have a profile, a cultivar called Miss X. And so it's one of my favorites. So when you guys come to Las Vegas, you got to look up GLP their Green Life Productions. They have the best flower on the market for sure.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Nicole, you're a sativa girl. I'm an indica girl. Myrcene is my favorite terpene. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it when it's coupled with linalool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, good stuff. Yeah, that lavender. And myrcene is also the cannabinoid, is the terpene that is found in mangoes. And mangoes is my favorite fruit. So
yes. So
yes, it is.
Do you eat a mango before you medicate?
Yes, yes, I do. When I read that, I was like, yep, I'm adding that to my list. I'm plant-based, so I love all my fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm actually about one meal away from being completely raw vegan. So right now I'm eating about one cooked meal a day. And that's just my journey to healing my body. And so it's a process and steps that I know I had to take. And so, but yes, I love me. Mangoes are now back in season over here, like the good ones. So yes, I love a mango when I smoke.
Yay. Okay, so this might be one of my last questions for you for tonight. I hear you time and time again say the word heal, and I like that. I like that you say it with your chest. That's great. Now, the FDA, on the other hand,
right.
Right. They want us to shy away from saying things like cannabis can heal this, or cannabis, healed me, and things like that. How do you, what's your personal take on that?
That's such a great question. So I knew that when I started this journey in 2000, 18, coming out publicly, talking about my diagnosis, I knew that I was going to heal my body naturally. I knew I was going to eventually become raw vegan. And that was the way that I was going to heal and come off of the pharmaceutical drug. And so with that commitment and with the commitment of being very public and transparent about my journey, I knew that I was going to be growing a target on my back. Pharmaceutical companies don't want you saying those kind of things. Right. And the louder that I get, the more people I talk to, the more, the bigger my platform and my megaphone gets, the larger that target will get. And so I recognized that and knew that I would just have to surround myself with the right energy and the right people, ask for protection from my ancestors, which they have given me. And so I can't be worried about my, keeping silent for my own safety. Like I got to do as much as I can. So my last breath, I will shout it from every mountaintop at the benefits of using this plant over pharmaceutical drugs. I mean, the synthetic drugs helped me to balance my body and help me to get undetected when I got diagnosed, which is great. But it's not something I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm just not. I'm not committed to giving this company money that is feeding me product poison that's not going to heal my body. I know how to do that. I know how to come off the pharmaceutical, and I'm okay with that. And until they take me out, I will be talking about it to everybody that I know.
You are such an inspiration. I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. That is so amazing. A large part of the things that you've been saying is actually why I'm in the cannabis industry myself, is to teach people about natural ways that we can heal ourselves. Because I fully believe that the earth gives us everything that we need. And
everything you need. And the body does the rest. The body, the mind, the spirit, it does the rest.
Yes. So you just have to give it a healthy environment to do that in with the right tools. Yes.
That's right.
You are amazing. You are a soldier in the field doing the work. And
thank you.
Thank you for everything that you've done so far and everything that you will continue to do, including talking to me tonight.
It's been my pleasure. It really has. And I'm so grateful. Thank you to everyone at Mary and Main for having me on the show and having this type of platform. It's important for us to be able to talk and tell our stories. And I'm an open book. Anybody that wants to reach out, anybody that needs resources or anything, just reach out to me, please. Thank you so much, Ayana.
Thank you so much, Nicole. You have a great night.
You do the same. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
That was great. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. This was a wonderful night. And do not forget that we will be back, more than likely, next Wednesday. So somebody from Mary and Main will see you on the main line then. You all have a great night.